the first question I have. I have a lot of questions from fans of the page, of the fans of Ed Greenwood on Facebook. If you haven't liked it, please go through. We would enjoy the numerous likes. And the first question I could think of, and this kind of bugged me and from the beginning, from a couple of editions back, and I understand about the Dungeons and Dragons, but the realms particularly being a living and breathing a world that has to change with the times. Do you think that Dungeons and Dragons as a whole is moving too quickly through editions?
Um, well, okay. There's the difference between what a game company needs and wants to do, which is sell you stuff.
That's true.
And what sells best? Core rule books. Or in the case of Magic the Gathering, if the main thrust of things is tournament play and cards are being made legal or no longer legal because they're quote broken,
Right.
then it makes sense to resell people new editions of the game because make more money and keep things moving along. This is legal, that is legal. And gamers, just as readers, want to know all the secrets. They want to now, even though that can kill some of the attraction of the setting, we still want to know everything. That's what as thinking, curious humans in life. We want to know more. Maybe not everything. Maybe we'll say, no, I want that still to be a mystery, but I need to know more about this over here, or I really like to know more about that over there. And of course, over time, more gets revealed, and more gets revealed, and more gets revealed. Now, from my point of view, as a gamer who plays board games and military simulation games, I very much want to know what the rules are, because quite often victory hinges on what you might call rules lawyering, knowing in detail of the rules. But the zone of control does not extend across a river hex, that sort of stuff.
Right.
After turn 32, the Russians are allowed double reinforcements, or whatever. And knowing that detail of the rule can be crucial to how the game turns. But when it comes to role-playing, I always think to myself, if you're trying to play this as a simulation, you're playing the wrong game. The role-playing is about role-playing, ham acting, telling a story together in a fantasy setting. And my personal gaming group that's been going, since way back when, 1978, continuous play onwards. They started as the Company of Crazed Venturers in 1978, and they retired those characters because they got high enough level, and we restarted playing at the library. I was working at a library then and was asked to do a Dungeons and Dragons program, which because they needed something for teens that teens would attend. And guess what? A good grooming program? Nobody came.
No.
And then they had a first aid for babysitters, and they got the requisite number of sullen kids whose parents thought this would be a really good thing to do and to have.
Well, unless it was babysitting baby goblins.
Well, yes, yeah. And, babies over 18, it's that free of charge. That's
exactly.
But there was no enthusiasm amongst the teenagers. So eventually somebody on staff figured out, Ed's weird and he plays his Dungeons and Dragons thing, and we keep getting asked about it. Why don't we let him run a Dungeons and Dragons program? Now, the initial enthusiasm on the part of the librarians quickly waned because they were interested in statistics. You show a movie, it takes 2 hours of staff time, and as many people as you can cram into the auditorium, 100 people, 200 people in the auditorium, you can say, hey, look, for 2 hours of staff time, we did 200 people. And then Dungeons & Dragons, they want 4 hours of staff time for 6 people, 8 people? What is this? But until that happened, we were running D&D. So that's when we relocated to Shadowdale and the characters that became the Knights of Mithrandir. And the point of all of this is that they like to play, the personal style of that group is acting out, speaking in funny voices, and they don't care about the rules. So therefore, as Dungeon Master, neither do I. I'm not trying to look stuff up in the rule book. I'm not trying to apply rules on a fine point detail. Now, if I was playing in a tournament, yes, because then how well you do in the survival of your character can depend on following the rules precisely and understanding them and making the right rulings. But for the Home Realms campaign, we are telling a story about characters that we are gradually getting to know and love, or hate, but more and more deeply. And we are storytelling together, and we want to be in the mood of the unfolding story. We do not want to pull ourselves back out of sharing the experience together by stepping out of it, consulting the rules and so on, in the same way that, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. You know, there are people who play Dungeons and Dragons like a game, and they metagame constantly. They have a party caller, and somebody says, well, you know, if the thief backstabs here, he'll get more damage according to the rules. So why don't you distract with this, and what's the area effect of that spell? Okay, you cast your spell over here, and at the same time, you know, and they're thinking about it like a football quarterback in the huddle is trying to direct the team, whereas I don't want any of our heads to be thinking like that. I want them to be the character in the world, and I, as Dungeon Master, saying the wind is even more chilly now, and the moon is rising through the scudding clouds. You're rustling behind you. What do you do? 10.
See, that's perfect. But also, did you realize that in letting your gaming sessions take that course, that you were creating these such iconic characters that were going to be part of the Forgotten Realms later on?
No, I didn't. Well, I did and I didn't, because later on, when we were doing things, I would quite often be asked by TSR, could you playtest this at the gaming table, but not tell them that's what you're doing? I mean, it's not
really?
It's not like they were stupid. It's not like they didn't realize what was going on pretty quickly. But the whole point was to see what their reactions were as players. Good players, veteran players, but not putting on their game designing thinking caps, you know.
Right.
And they wanted to see how it played out at the table. And this wasn't just me. Many, I can recall an early Gen Con in Milwaukee where they actually did a seminar. One of the Bloom brothers was giving a seminar about what they put in and left out a Queen of the Demonwood Pits, because they'd say things like, well, we had this really cool room where these pillars would turn into salamanders if you touched them. But it's not in the adventure, because everybody walked in, saw nothing except pillars, and turned around and walked out. Oh, there's nothing here. And we turned around and walked out again without touching the pillars. No. So, I mean, they were doing playtests all the time with all sorts of people, and they deliberately wanted gaming groups with different styles.
Right.
From the football quarterback to the I've put on my costume, and although I am 300 pounds, male and bearded, I am playing the elf maiden. Hello, you know. and they wanted all of.
Was it Florin played by a woman?
No. Florin was John Hunter. Still is John Hunter, a professor at well, I won't completely blow his cover. But,
oh, don't.
But the point about Florin is, as John personally was handsome and head of a rugger team at that point for university, and was irresistible to the gals, we would sort of lampoon that by having Florin walk into a room as the envoy of Shadowdale, and all the female NPCs in the room would go, ah, and faint. and he'd give me this sour look and say, really, Ed? You know. So
well, as a matter of fact, that kind of goes into we have a question here from Aaron Painter, and he asks, whatever happened to Florin and the other Knights of Mithranor, and do they still exist in some form in the current Shadowdale?
Okay, here we go. Okay, the specific fates of the Knights are all NDA, as in non-disclosure agreement, as in I can't talk about them because Wizards has plans.
Oh,
good. Which may or may not ever come to anything. You know, some of the original Knights have popped up as minis in various releases from various licensees. But I have no idea if these plans will ever come to anything. And yes, occasionally you see some of them mentioned in some of the 5th edition, you know, in passing. But in the Home Realms campaign, we're still in 1358 DR before the Time of Troubles, because, you know, when I talked about my dungeon mastering style, well, part of it is I give the players votes on realm-shaking events that are in the published realms, and they have voted that they do not want the time of troubles, perhaps ever, but certainly not yet, because there's all these things they want to do first. So guess what? Hasn't happened yet. And real time in the realms passes very slowly in the Home Realms campaign because we are gaming what they're doing. So we could spend 2 or 3 months of play sessions, which aren't very often at all these days, and only get through a couple days in the realms. But I can tell you that back in 1358, DR, in the Home Realms campaign, all of the knights are going strong.
Okay.
They're fathering kids and they're adventuring, except for those, like Douse Sulwood as an example, who've already retired. In his case, he retired to temple life. He was a priest. And the player of Douse Sulwood started a new character, Rathan, who is quite familiar to the readers of the novels, Rathan and Tor. But I can also tell you, and tell Aaron, there are still Knights of Mithranor in Shadowdale as the Realms date approaches 1500 DR. Don't expect them to all be the same ones.
Right. So could we expect any offspring from the original Knights to take up the mantle in of the Knights of Mithranor second edition type?
Oh yes. Oh yes, and other new recruits. The Knights of, although the Knights that have featured in the novels and the short stories tend to be a rather small cast, the Knights in the Home Realms campaign have had a whole bunch of recruits who haven't lasted long for various reasons. Morngrim and Cathra, who became Lord of Shadowdale, to become the Knights, they turned around and saddled various of the NPC members with the lordship. Hey, we don't want to be lords of Shadowdale and have to sit here every day on the throne. Here, you be lord. We're going to go adventuring again. Well, and Morngrim, of course, had a past. He was of the royal family of Ruathan, and guess what? When his country needed him, he answered the call. He left the Knights and went back to Ruathan.
Right.
La 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 la